to the first of these change control webinars. We'll get started because we've got just over 50 people on the call, and we'll have a few people joining over the next few minutes, no doubt. This will be recorded and published on the collaboration base for everybody. So if there are any people who aren't able to make it, they'll be able to watch the webinar back. As I mentioned, this is the first of these webinars that we'll look to run with industry ahead of issuing each change request or new change request out for impact assessment. The purpose of these meetings is to ensure you as programme participants are better equipped to be able to complete the impact assessments for upcoming change requests that we're about to issue. This is a new step in the change control process that we've introduced as part of a series of amendments that we've made to improve the process. We've got two change requests to go through today, and we've got both change raisers on the call with us, and they'll take you through their respective changes shortly. They'll effectively provide a short overview of the scope of the change, the justification for it, and how it meets the change freeze criteria that we have in place, and provide a high level kind of impact as it's understood at this point in time. Before we jump into these CRs, I was just going to spend 5 minutes talking through the end-to-end change control process and the amendments we've made, which you can see the process on the screen here. We've looked to address some recommendations from the IPA's recent review of CR36, as well as adapting the process to meet the increasingly cross-functional nature of change requests. As we move into testing and further towards M10 and M11, we're seeing increasingly that the number of new CRs that are coming through have implications across multiple work streams, be that design, test, migration, qualification, and code. And this means we need wider engagement for each CR than that is raised, and decision making needs to be considered and consider all of the work streams. So we've made some amendments to hopefully incorporate that kind of position of the programme to where we are. So the change control process has effectively 4 high-level phases, where a change is identified and developed, the initial analysis and assessment of the change, full impact assessment, and then approval and implementation. So originally, the change control process was initiated when a CR was submitted to the PMO team. However, now it will effectively be started at the point where an issue or a prospective change is first identified. This could be through a defect in testing, it could be through the DIN process in design, it could be via horizon scanning and code drafting, or via discussion at a working group. At that point, the PMO will oversee this potential change through to a change request being raised. So we'll have much more involvement in it. And once the one of the key criteria that we'll want to see is a clearly articulated solution in the change that's been socialised with appropriate stakeholders beforehand. This could be done kind of through the design resolution group to help shape and define the chosen solution. Might be done through a programme participant information request, PPIR, which I'm sure many of you will have seen that we've issued previously. And that could be to get from multiple solutions to a single favoured solution, or it could be through working groups where a particular topic might be discussed, a solution agreed to resolve the issue and ensure that the problem is kind of articulated clearly, and then the CR drafted. So through that process, a change owner will also be appointed, and it will be that change owner or change raiser who will be tasked with drafting the change request and submitting that to the PMO and presenting to the change board. So that activity covers the purple chevron that you'll see on the left-hand side of the slide there. Once the change request is then raised, the PMO will review this for general kind of quality assurance purposes, and share that then with the change board. The change board will review and assess all new CRs against the change freeze criteria, ensuring that it either addresses a defect or it is critical for M10, which are the two kind of standing criteria. They'll also test to ensure that sufficient engagement has been undertaken beforehand and that the solution in the CR is articulated clearly enough and is mature enough to be impact assessed. At this point, the Change Board will propose to issue the CR for impact assessment, or they may recommend that updates need to be made to the CR. But they will make that decision rather than proposing that the CR goes to an advisory group to make that decision, which is how the change process previously operated. We won't send the IA straight out. Instead, we'll have one of these meetings, which is where we are with CR 47 and 48 at this point in time. We'll have one of these engagement sessions where the change raiser will be asked to present the change and talk through the change with industry. Again, touching on what the change is, the rationale for it, the high-level prospective impacts, and generally timelines where known. As part of this webinar, and my colleague Imi will touch on that in a second, there'll be a Q&A which you'll be able to ask questions, and this Q&A will aim to address as many questions in the webinar as possible. Those we don't get to, we'll take offline and issue as part of an FAQ document that will go alongside the CRs for impact assessment. Again, and some of those comments and feedback that we get from you will be used to potentially improve and enhance the CR where appropriate before issuing it out for impact assessment. And that's effectively in that second chevron on the screen. The full impact assessment process remains unchanged in the sense that once we issue the CR out for impact assessment, there'll be a 10-day working day turnaround, and then once those responses are all submitted and the deadline passes, the PMO will create the summary reports as normal, putting together all of the insight and feedback that we receive from industry. We'll review that summary report with the Change Board, and then the Change Board will make a recommendation to the SRO as to whether to approve or reject the CR. This is the change in the process here, whereas normally this approval would be then taken and ratified at an advisory group. Because of the cross-functional nature of the changes that we're seeing, they're the best forum to be able to have that holistic view of impacts across the programme is PSG. So the Change Board will make a recommendation to the PSG, who will then ratify the decision at the next PSG meeting. So essentially, all changes will now navigate their way through a programme steering group rather than a specific advisory group. A couple of benefits for this process then is that it ideally expedites the end-to-end process and removes the kind of onus on advisory groups having to process multiple CRs or multiple advisory groups having to approve the same CR. It ensures yourselves are better engaged in what's coming up in terms of new CRs, and you've got better line of sight. And it gives you also it gives programme participants, that is, a direct route to the change raiser to ask any questions or provide any builds before we get to the impact assessment stage. So we just thought it was worth spending a couple of minutes at the start of this webinar talking through the process end to end and those amendments that we've made. We'll be republishing all of the documentation. We'll be republishing all of the documentation once it's updated out to industry, and refreshing that as part of an upcoming CR. So the PMO is just working through those changes now. This webinar is focused on these two individual CRs, so CR 47 and 48. There is a Q&A which Imi, my colleague, will talk through in a second. We'll be taking questions on the two CRs only. If you have any questions on the proposed processes on the screen or the processes on the screen, please reach out to myself, that's Lewis Hall, or to the PMO, and we can pick those up and discuss them offline. But we want to focus the remaining time of this webinar solely on the two changes that we have here to provide you with the most as much opportunity as possible to ask questions on these changes and how they may impact you. So with that, I'll stop talking, and I'm going to hand over to Imi, who's just going to talk through a couple of logistical considerations for the webinar and how it'll operate. So Imi, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks very much, Lewis. Afternoon, everyone. So as Lewis mentioned, we will be hosting a Q&A with this webinar. So the format will be that each of our change raisers will present their change request, and then we'll open into a Q&A via Slido. I'll share the link to the Slido in the chat now, and we also have the code MHHS, which will be on each of the slides. So if all questions could come via there, rather than in this meeting chat, or by coming off mute, just so we can keep things moving. I think Lewis mentioned it as well, but if we can't get to any questions that are raised, these will be issued offline in the FAQ document. I'll drop that in. It's already in there. It's been dropped in. It's been dropped in. Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Alice is all over it. Brilliant. I will hand over to Ben then for CR 47, please.
Hi guys, so this is primarily a change of title for a tier 2 milestone that is associated with the completion of qualification testing for non-SIT LDSO program participants. There are further tier 3 milestone changes which have been included for reference, which have come about as a result of the rebaselining of the qualification testing for non-SIT participants until after cycle 2 of SIT. So in order to update the schedule baseline, we have completed a replanning exercise and amended the milestone tracker accordingly. Rather than sort of reading out the slide for everyone, this is just to say that there has been no material change in what the tier 2 milestone constitutes. We are also proposing, in addition to this, and apologies that this hadn't been circulated prior. This is a development from yesterday. We are also proposing an additional tier 2 milestone that would signify the commencement of non-SIT LDSO qualification testing, as well as this current milestone signifying its completion. So that is in line with the sort of the standards that exist elsewhere in the programme, where other work streams are sort of capturing similar milestones as tier 2. That's kind of it for the overview and justification. In terms of the impact, we don't see there as being any impact on program participants or across the wider program. We obviously engage with the PMO and maintain a coherent schedule as part of normal business practices. I will now submit to any questions.
Thank you, Ben. We'll just give everyone a minute to submit any questions on CR 47 via Slido.
And what an honour it is to be the first person to go through this process.
You've done brilliantly. We'll just wait a couple more minutes in case anyone's formulating questions. Okay, we haven't had any questions through yet on CR 47, so we'll move on to CR 48. If you have any questions about CR 47 that pop up in the next few minutes, just drop them in the Slido. Oh, here, we've had one through now. So Ben, David asks, are the new tier 2 milestones, are the new tier 2 milestone dates, start of qualification testing and proposed revised tier 2 qualification end referenced in the CR?
Um, I believe so, but just to be double sure, and I'm happy to sort of to share this. So the tier 2 milestone that you've currently got in front of you there, the date for that remains the 21st of February 2025. And for the new tier 2 milestone, which is the completion of test readiness of the test readiness confirmation process, that is the 30th of September 2024.
Thank you, Ben. And we can make sure if they're not, that they are referenced in the CR before we send it out for impact assessment.
Okay. Over to
Brilliant.
Laura.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to CR 48. Again, if you have any questions on 47, please submit them as we go through. So I will hand over to Laura.
Thanks, Amy. And I'm honoured to be the second person to get to do the webinar. So similar to CR 47, this CR is an update to programme milestones to reflect the replan that was done in the tail end of last year. It is the plan that we've been working to in qualification since November, December, when it was shared with QWG and PSG. We're just updating the programme plan to now reflect that and provide the clarity to the participants. So we're updating 7 of the T2 milestones. Each one of these previously referenced tranches 1 to 7. We're updating them to represent the fact that we're moving away from the tranches. We now have the waves and also the reduction in the number of waves down to 4. So we're updating the dates and wording of 4 of the T2 milestones and removing the 3 that referenced tranches 5 to 7. The change to the milestone also requires update of a number of tier 3 milestones, which are included in the appendix with the CR. They now align to the wave dates. They reflect the update to some of the approach and also taking into account the feedback that we had received from participants, such as the pit completion date, which we've now realigned to be a month before the wave entry. We've also added some additional milestones in tier 3 to help support with participant planning and make it a bit more granular of what we're expecting from participants for each wave. The dates are reflected in the qualification approach and plan appendix C, which has been out for the industry consultation and is due to be going to QAG for approval on Thursday. To clarify, we're not changing the scope of the qualification or of the overall timeline for qualification. This is to reflect the updated plan that we've been working to since November, December, and make sure there's clarity for participants. And this is particularly for the non-SIT supplier and agents who will be going through the qualification waves. That was everything I wanted to say on this.
Thank you very much, Laura. I've noted there's another question on CR 47 in the chat, but we'll just welcome questions on CR 48 before addressing that one. Whilst we allow those to come in, I'll jump back to Ben. Ben, would just like to get confirmation, please. Is 30th of September the start of qualification testing for non-SIT LDSOs?
So it is, yes, but it is signified by the completion of the readiness assessments. So rather than have a milestone that states, this is the start of the testing window, it is a milestone that states that all of the delivery activities and the development work and, regression testing that has had to go on up until that point has been successfully completed, and that the project is therefore signified as able to progress into qualification testing. So yes, it does signify the start of the testing window.
Thank you very much. We'll just allow a couple more minutes for any more questions. We'll also keep the Slido up in case any questions need to come through a little bit later on. We have another question. I'm assuming this one is for Ben as well. What is the expectation for the start of PIT ahead of qualification testing? Is this the 30th of September too?
No, the start of PIT is, let me check my schedule. Because PIT is broken into functional, non-functional migration, it's not as straightforward as to say. So they will both be complete. So the functional migration will be complete the 30th of August. Non-functional and operational will be complete on the 30th of September. So that is the driver for the readiness review.
I don't think we dictate a start date for that, do we, Ben? It's just ensuring that the evidence is complete to be provided by the deadline. I think that's
correct.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you both. We have a question. This one is for Laura from Chris Butterfield for CR48. Have the new Tier 3 dates taken into account proximity to SIT testing end dates for functional migration and non-functional, or should this be raised as part of the impact assessment?
So they've taken into account what we know of SIT. We're certainly aware that there's risk that milestones, that we have some dependencies and that milestones may need to be reassessed, but happy for Chris to raise it as part of the impact assessment and we can consider that.
Thank you very much. And there's just a thanks from David in there to Ben and Jason for clarifying. Okay, if there are no more questions, we can wrap up. The Slido is still live if you'd like to submit anything offline. And also, as Lewis mentioned, questions can come to the peer mailbox, both on this and on the new CR process.
how long should we keep it open for, Amy, till close of play today?
Yes, if
have a think.
Any questions by the end of today, and then we will get the FAQ document out hopefully by tomorrow. And any adjustments can be made to the CRs as needed as well. Brilliant. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Enjoy your afternoons. Thanks, Ben and Laura.
Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, guys.
Thanks all.
See you later.